To Santon, our reporter Hasina Katrada is standing by. Hasina, who are you with? What's happening?
Thank you, Francis. Yes, we've just come out of a very interesting media briefing, and Minister Pravin Gordhan, Minister Rob Davies, Minister Lindiwe Zulu, and of course the Indian Trade and Commerce Minister there as well, and the Premier David Makura as well. And one of the issues that came under the spotlight was SMEs, and of course the collaboration between South Africa and India in the future. And I'm joined now by Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises, Minister Lindiwe Zulu. Minister, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. We are very happy to be here. As the theme says, we are united by legacy and unified for prosperity. Simply put, is that we have a history with India which dates back, but we're looking forward to ensuring that the people of South Africa and the peoples of India, in particular those that are still struggling, are at the center of what we are doing here in terms of developing policy that will assist us to help in relation to small and medium enterprises. Not only small and medium enterprises, but it's about everybody. But I can't be anywhere else without having to focus and speak for small and medium enterprises.
Minister, you spoke about a 2 billion rand fund that was going to be released later this year?
No, it's for next year. The President Ramaphosa already announced it in the State of the Nation address, and our department, together with the Department of Finance, Treasury, and the Department of Trade and Industry, we still are looking at how do we structure this fund so that ultimately it can respond to the challenges of startups. This meeting also between India and South Africa, questions were raised about what needs to be done to support those that are in startups. And in the South African context, my experience as a Minister of Small Business Development, part of what I think is one of the biggest challenges for SMEs as well as cooperatives and the informal businesses, it's about funding for startups. So that money is going to be focusing on startups. Besides that money, which is a government fund, we also have a fund which comes from the European Union, which was launched already a few weeks ago. That fund also is supposed to support small and medium enterprises, but focus particularly in those that are startup. Most of the people that were chasing me around here are startups who have one plan or the other, but they do not have enough financial arm and financial muscle to be able to fund their startup businesses.
Now, Minister, when we look at Indian businesses, especially in the townships in South Africa, they seem to be thriving. The little small businesses across the townships in South Africa, they're really doing well. What do you think is the secret? What do you think is their secret?
The secret is the fact that historically, for many, many centuries, trading was never something only for big companies in India. Trading has always been starting with your small businesses, your informal people on the street, being enabled to do that by government. And that's why our government of South Africa decided to have a ministry that was going to solely focus on policy for small and medium enterprises, legislation, creating of a conducive environment for SMEs. Now, what we have to learn, obviously, is what is it that makes Indian small and medium enterprises succeed. But obviously, you must also remember that the population is quite huge. So the buying power also in India is quite big than ours. Also, you must remember that from a South African perspective, majority of black people were never enabled to go out and start their businesses. There was no support for small and medium enterprises in the apartheid era. Now we are 24 years in government, and we are doing our best to focus on creating the conducive environment by ensuring that we remove red tape, by ensuring that we have the right legislation, by ensuring that there is proper coordination, by the way, because part of what becomes a problem is when the support for SMEs, cooperatives, is not properly coordinated. National does its own, provincial does its own, local does its own. This Department of Small and Medium Enterprises is focusing on how can we have a coordinated approach. The most important thing right now The world is speaking about the importance of small and medium enterprises, their role in terms of creating jobs, their role in terms of addressing issues of poverty and inequality. South Africa is just on the right track towards that. Hence, I am participating here, even though it's an issue of trade between the two countries, but the issues of small and medium enterprises are also at the center of the discussions here.
I think it's quite important when you talk about legislation. How do you, as the ministry, ensure that Indian businesses comply, especially when it comes to employment and with an emphasis being on localization?
Well, there are regulations in each and every country. There are laws in each and every country. South Africa is no exception to that. That is why the Department of Trade and Industry, for instance, has got your one-stop shop for trade and investment. That one-stop shop on trade and investment, it's specifically meant to make those who are investing in South Africa to have a better understanding of the investment environment in South Africa, but also have a complete understanding of the regulation, a complete understanding of the laws of the country. And I think that each and every country has got its own laws. As South Africa, our laws also have to take into consideration, in the main, our own national interest. What is it that we want to do? Government has said it over and over again, and President Cyril Ramaphosa recently in England, he made it very clear that this country is looking for investment. We're looking for $100 billion US in investment. For me, as a Minister of Small Business Development, I'm saying, okay, that's a very good one, but I must look for what's in it for small and medium enterprises. And so investors coming into South Africa also have to have the appreciation and understanding that our small and medium enterprises, particularly black-owned, women-owned, and youth-owned, are still really not at the level of the other who have been operating for a very long time. So we are a country of law and order, and therefore anyone who comes into our country who wants to invest, just like anywhere else in the world, they have to understand our own plan as government, the plan of ensuring that we lift our people out of poverty, a plan that also says we need to give land back to our people, but then giving them land back, we're not only just giving them the land, we also need to give them the necessary support and the necessary implements to make sure that the land that they have, either for farming, agricultural purposes, or for building communities, is also supported by government.
And one last question, Minister. There's going to be a session later this afternoon on women in business and entrepreneurship, and there's a group of Indian entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs here, and they're going to be joined by some of our country's top women entrepreneurs. What do you think we can learn from India in terms of growing our number of female entrepreneurs?
Yes, the issue of women entrepreneurs, whether it's in India or in America or in South Africa or in Senegal or Ghana, remains a critical challenge for women in particular. It is for this reason, therefore, that we call upon women not only to look at entrepreneurship, but to look at the overall empowerment of women. We're calling on governments to also look at how they can be able to focus on policies that are enabling for women. There's nothing wrong with being specific and focusing and saying, we know that historically women were never given the opportunity, whether they are black or white, but in South Africa the majority is of black women who were never given that opportunity. So it is of our view that as women, first and foremost, we must unite around supporting each other as women, and government, on the other hand, must enable women by ensuring that the issue of women emancipation, women empowerment is high on the agenda. So that session that's going to be discussing, it's not supposed to be a session that only just looks at women in business. It is a session that also needs to look at where are women, what is it that makes women to find themselves behind. Even in terms of payment of their salaries, you find that women are doing the same kind of a job with the men, but they get less. So overall, this government of the African National Congress in South Africa has made it one of its key to address the issues of women. That's why in our department, 50% of our programs deliberately have to support women. Also, 30% of our programs have to support youth in particular, because youth are the future. So I'm looking forward to that session where women are going to be talking about what are the challenges that they face. But women also need to make suggestions as to what they think needs to be done by government. But overall, I just want to say this is a societal problem. It's a patriarchal society where women have to face challenges, whether they are in business, whether they are in the media, whether they are anywhere in the world. They have to be confronted with these challenges. But as government, we are committed to ensuring that women also contribute equally towards building a better South Africa.
Minister, thank you so much for joining us. That was Minister Lindiwe Zulu, Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises. Francis, there are going to be a host of interesting discussions taking place here this afternoon, focusing on the automotive industry, focusing on health and pharmaceuticals, women in business. So we're going to attend some of these, and of course we'll bring you updates throughout the day. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Hasina, and we will drop in and check on her a little bit later. Meanwhile, India's